Hello there, and welcome to episode 61 of Talking Devils. Kind of somber episode. I have the great Gordon Hill here with me today, and we're going to talk about his good friend Paul Mariner, who recently passed away. So this is a special for Talking Devils. And as I said, I'm here with Gordon Hill, former Manchester United and England international. Gordon, how are you? How are you doing today?
I'm very well, thank you. Yeah, very well. As I said, it's a somber day, and it's just a time to remember. But I've got I've got fond memories and a great relationship with Paul Mariner.
So before I hand it off to you to tell us about your time with Paul, I want to just go through a little bit of his career. He had a really distinguished career, played over 550 professional games. He scored 179 goals in that time. He played for England 35 times. With a really respectable return of 13 goals. He went to the Euros in 1980 with Italy. In Italy, he went to the World Cup in Spain. And all in all, a really good career before he eventually moved into management. And one thing that I didn't know was he was actually the broadcaster for the New England Revolution here in the US. So I found out something new today. Tomorrow is a celebration of his life in England. It's being held in the Sir Bobby Robson Suite at Ipswich's home ground. Gordon, you roommate with Paul in the late 70s at the England Hotel in the West Lodge Park. I know you're going to have some stories that you can tell us, and there's some stories that you won't be able to tell us because I can only imagine what went on at that time. So, Gordon, I'd like to hand it off to you now to just give us an insight into not only playing with Paul in England, but you've had an over 40-year relationship with him. And as I said, sadly, he passed away last month. So we wanted to get you on to just for you to just give us a little bit more about what we didn't know about Paul and how great of a guy he was.
Well, PM, as we used to call him, I used to call him PM, was a lovable character. I mean, he came from Chorley. He had that northern accent that you could have a laugh with and have a bit of fun and take the mickey every now and then. But we first met in an England game or an England tour. We were staying at the West Lodge Park, North London, and I was rooming with him, and I'd signed in and got into the room, and it was like, I was ready to have a bath. It was like one of those. So I get myself ready and I get in the bath and close the bathroom door, and all of a sudden the key in the door opens up, and he said, and all of a sudden you hear PM, hello. Well, what I was doing my imitations in the bath, and the imitations was John Wayne, Norman Wisdom, and the first thing I said was okay, Kincaid, who are you? And he was wondering if I had people in the bathroom.
Yeah, would you?
And then I went, this is Mr. Grimsdale. And of course, like the first thing he did was blimey, and he went, Gordon. And I went, Paul, how are you? And I got out the bath and everything else. And he went, I will never forget this, he said, because that was brilliant. He said, I thought there was three people he said, all of a sudden I've got John Wayne, Norman Wisdom, and Bruce Forsyth having a crack at me. And then we got talking and became friends. And we'd done a lot of tours together with the England. The B tour was one of them where we went to New Zealand and Australia, and we played a New Zealand one game, and he got taken out by a centre defender, a New Zealand centre defender that was clueless, totally clueless. I mean, we were playing representative games against the New Zealand 11, and Ball came across. PM's gone up for it. This clumsy player's come in, eyes closed, smacked straight on the side of the head, depressed cheekbone. I sat with him for 2 days, night and day, while he was recuperating and moaning, because when you get it on the side of your head, it's the seriousness of it then wasn't as much as it was the seriousness of the situation that's happening now, repercussions, so to speak. And I sat there with him, and we were 8,000 miles away from England, from the families and bits and pieces. And I sat there with him and nursed him through it right the way through. They went out to reception and I stayed in the room and everything else. And we created that bit of a bond, even though PM was with a successful club, Ipswich Town, who had some great players in Russell Osman, the late Kevin Beattie, who was phenomenal, who was great, and Mickey Mills. I mean, you can go on and on about the Ipswich side, which was fantastic at that time. And of course, they went on to win the cup, the European. So we got to become very, very close, and we followed each other all the way through. And when I came to the States, PM knew that I had a new. That was when Nike was just coming onto the scene, and he knew where I was, and he contacted. He said, "Do you think you could get a pair of Nike little baby trainers for my son George?" So I got them from Nike and I sent him across a miniature version about that big, and of course that was it. And we've been friends, and I got to know the family, his wife. And obviously the kids have come along later. George was, I think, the first one. But we've stayed in touch. And then when we played a game at Old Trafford, the Legends game, or an All-Star game, I invited Paul to come along, his son to come along, and also Paul's dad. And I've still got those photos of us sitting at Old Trafford, me playing and not, sitting there and watching this great game. And his son hadn't been to Old Trafford, and his son was just in awe, and PM was going, wow, what a place to play. Even though he was at Ipswich and had a great time, at Arsenal, Old Trafford was still very much a wow factor. Mm-hmm. So we got very close, and then we started to keep in touch, even though I tried to explain to people that even though you don't see people for 5, 10, 15 years, doesn't change your friendship. No. You could pick up the phone 5 years down the road and say, "Oh, by the way, how you doing?" And it could be 5 years down the road. So 5 years of stuff has happened. But what you do is you basically just look at it and go, "Oh, it's like yesterday." And then your memories come back to yesterday. And it was only in November that I got to I spoke to him. And I looked back at my messages, and it was only about 6 weeks ago that I'd sent him a message about, what the treatment was, how he was doing, how could I help, and it really materialized so quickly,
Well, this is the thing with a lot of footballers is that, they go from club to club, from country to country, from continent to continent. So to keep in touch, consistently is a very hard thing to do for footballers, even 20, 30, 40 years ago, let alone today, where players switch from, club to club, every other season. Yeah. So for you guys to still have a relationship, 40 years after you first met is quite astonishing,
Yeah, well, today's players are just ships in the night.
Yeah.
And, they spend a year. But I think that all boils down to the game that we were in, which was loyalty. He showed his loyalty to Ipswich. Yeah. I showed my loyalty to Millwall and Manchester United. I think basically you never forget that. And I think you remember the friends. I mean, Brian Greenough, God rest his soul, was exactly the same. You become a friend, and you become a friend. I think now in today's game, it's sadly gone.
Yeah, and for the most part, it is.
Yeah, and with PM, you know, when I found out, obviously there was a few tears because it was something that I said, is there anything I can do? Is there anything I can help you with? Is there anything that I could possibly, anything, just let me know. And it would be, no, it's all right. I'll fight it. No problem. Don't worry about it. I said, you let me know if you need anything. Yes, no problem. And then what he did, it was just, it would go quiet. And then I'd say, PM, how are you doing? I said, this chemo is doing me. He said, but I'll fight it. And I went, I know you will. I said, if I can help, there is nothing I could say, nothing I could do. And it was sad. And then I got the sad word of him passing. And that really brought things home to me and memories. So they're having they're having a memorial for him tomorrow at Ipswich Town. It rightfully so. I mean, I can't be there because obviously the COVID and the traveling restrictions, and I've explained that to George. But I would just like to say to the Mariner family, I am deeply saddened and sad the losing of a very good friend, a father to you guys, and a great footballer, and a person that will be missed in the football world. I will always remember him. Love you, PM, and rest in peace, my friend.
That's a beautiful thing to give to the family, Gordon. If I was to ask you, one or two questions, one of them would be, like I said earlier on, he had a really, really good return rate, as a striker. Is there anyone today that you would, or even over the past 10 years that you kind of see resemblances of Paul's style of play and on the pitch, anywhere in the Premier League, in Europe, anywhere at all? Who reminds you the most of him these days?
It's sometimes it's very difficult because of the players that are out there, the roles that they play. I think Paul was halfway between a true centre forward and a player that could play and think about what he was doing. You've got your old centre forwards, and then you've got your new centre forwards, and you put them together and you come out with Paul Mariner.
Oh, wow.
And you come out with Paul Mariner because not only would he work, not only would he challenge, not only would he score goals for you, but he'd also try to make goals for you as well. And I think that's the nice thing about it is I used to be able to put him on his head, and I'd put it in there. He says, you put it in there and I'll challenge. He says, I'll get on the end of them. And I think that's sometimes missing in today's game. That you get that. The closest player I can see to him in today's game would be Cavani. He's got a little bit of the old one. He's got and the player to me that was resembling the most was Batistuta as well.
Okay.
Where he would be able to get up and challenge and be all over the field and really cause problems for defenders. And we played for England, and he'd be a great target man. And he was big, he was strong, and you used to always have to mark him, even when he was at Ipswich. You'd have to be able, and you look at it and say, and I was on the left hand side, so I wasn't a defender, I wasn't a Greenough or a Buchan that had to take care of these players, but what they did, they become an annoyance, and then they become a rash on the defenders. And they say, and you'd always say, oh gosh, you've got Mariner this weekend, and you'd say, oh God, he'll get up, he'll head it, he'll head anything. So he had that tenaciousness of getting in there, but he also thought sometimes about the way he was playing, and he loved winning. I remember that one England trip, we were at the hotel getting ready to fly out, and me and him had we had a bicycle kick in the bedroom. Who could bicycle kick on the bed and hit the wall. You know, it was crazy. I mean, we're grown up. We're international players, and we're playing bicycle kicks in the bedroom. And the hotel must have said, "Blimey, we're going to send them the bed bill." Because we would throw the ball up, the socks, not the ball, socks.
Yeah.
Together, and I would do mine, and he was like, "Oh, that was great." Then he would do his. Then I said, "No." I said, "You've got to do it." And of course, that was two players getting ready for an international match, playing bicycle kicks against the bedroom.
With rolled up socks.
I get a knock on the door. Excuse me, is there a noise in it? Oh yeah, it was one of the two of the players, because we roomed together.
Yeah, it's that Mariner lad in there.
Yeah, two of the players would knock on the door. Are you two playing? What are you doing? Oh, no, we're just practicing bicycle kicks just in case we get one. So
yeah,
those memories were, you know, I'd love to have a pair of them socks.
back then. Now, so what would, if you were to have? I mean, unless you've already spoken about it, if you have one lasting memory, I'm going to ask you two questions here. You may not be able to answer the second one. What is the memory that sticks out most in your mind? And if it is the England introduction, well then you can say that. But what is the one story that comes into your head when you hear his name? That's question number one. And question number two: is there any stories out there that we don't really know about that that are still PG, but you can let us know? Because I'm sure there's a lot of them that you can't tell us about.
Yeah, I mean, the fun stories are the ones I've just gone over, bits and bobs. I think the good story was when Bobby Robson was we were out in Singapore, Hong Kong, and me and PM were there, and PM said, the boss, as we used to call him, Sir Bobby, he said the boss he wants to get a watch, and it will get a cheap one out here, which would be a Cartier or whatever he wanted to get. So I said, right. So he went out and he got his watch, and God be with me for this, because I haven't told too many people, but on the plane on the way home, I kept shouting out, "What's the time, boss?" And he kept on, and I wouldn't let him sleep. "What's the time, boss?" And of course he'd think somebody was really asking the time. And when we get back to the airport, because Singapore and Hong Kong, you could get some cheap products. Some. So we're walking through the customs, and I shout out, "Don't forget to tell them about the watch, boss."
Oh my God!
And of course, all the customs officers knew us, and they were laughing their heads off, because he was wearing this watch that he bought over there. And then I said, "That's a great watch you got there, boss." And you could see Bobby going, "Oh no, Yeah, and it was, and the boys were laughing and bits and pieces. I said, "Oh, I'll tell you." So those memories that we had, sitting, just chatting in the room, going over our stories, going over what's it like playing at Man United. What's Bobby Robson like, and you get to know different people. And of course, Mickey Mills was obviously with us as well, so he was an Ipswich great, and you get to that camaraderie. But you get, after you're finished and you go your separate ways, and you do your coaching and your managing and your TV bits and pieces, which we all do and we've all done. I think you even if you don't see them anymore, your memories will never be taken away from it. Yeah. I still look at the messages I've got on my FaceTime from him 4 weeks. Every time I speak to him, it's, "How are you doing?" "All right." "Oh, I'm fighting this." "Okay, good." "What are you? How are you?" His words to me was, "How are you?" I said, I'm all right. I'm not worried about me. I'm worried about you." He says, I'm all right. And I think I remember him as a caring, good friend, or close friend, great professional, and would do anything for you. You know, when I first met him and met his family, it was brilliant. It was brilliant. And I think he tried, when I was at Derby, before I left Derby, Bobby wanted to sign me, and PM had set all that up. And unfortunately, it didn't happen. But I would have played for Ipswich. I'd have played for, I'd have played for Bobby Robson, Sir Bobby. And yeah, those are the memories, those are the memories that you really remember. And I think that will never cease with me, and it'll always be dear to my heart, and it'll always be inside me.
Well, Gordon, I'm going to end it there, and I really appreciate you coming on. I know this is a difficult time for you and your family, and I'm really appreciate you coming on and talking about Paul and giving us some insight and some funny stories that most of us probably didn't even know.
I think that's what George wanted. He wanted it to be laughter. He wanted it not to be somber, so to speak. That's there regardless. The light-hearted moments, the funnies, the Mariner family. I just wish that, it was different circumstances. I just, there's nothing I can say. I'm saddened. I hope you have. You can't say you hope you have a great day, because it's not a great day, but it's one way of saying goodbye.
Yeah. And celebrate his life. Well,
and
Gordon,
all the things. Yeah.
It's been fascinating listening to you for the past 20 minutes, and you're always eager to come on the show when we ask, and I appreciate you coming on to talk about Paul. We've spent the last 20 minutes, laughing and feeling a little bit sad, but more so laughing than anything else. So I really appreciate it, Gordon, and I look forward to hearing a lot more of these stories throughout the year from you in regard to your playing career as well. But to the Mariner family, our condolences here from Talk of the Devils. And we hope, and we mean this in the nicest way, that the celebration tomorrow is full of laughter, it's full of joy, and you give Paul, which I know you will, give him a great sending off. So
yes, I echo that. I second that. I second that. Rest in peace, my friend. I will never forget you.
All right. Thank you, Gordon, and I appreciate you coming on.
Okay. Cheers, Dave.
Cheers, mate.